It's 2 o'clock, so I'll call the commission meeting for Thursday, April 20th to order. I will lead us in the invocation. I've asked Commissioner Rowe to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone please stand. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're just thankful for this day, and we're thankful for the opportunity to serve the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. Grant us wisdom during this meeting, help us to understand the issues at hand, and help us make the correct decisions. Father, we want to thank you for all of our staff. We want to especially thank those staff members that are going to be honored today with new certifications. We thank you for the work each staff member does. We ask that you bless their families, and we just thank you for the opportunity that they have and we have to help them as they go about doing their work as keeping our water and sewer system straight and in good shape. We just ask guidance in this meeting and help us to glorify you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's no public comment today, so we'll proceed with the employee recognition. Let's see. First one's going to be Keith Hopkins.
Yes, President James.
He's got this. Is Mr. Hopkins? This is
Yes, sir.
everybody.
Step out here, Cindy.
Head of Georgia Board of Examiners for certification of water and wastewater treatment plant operators. Laboratory analyst certified Brian Hopkins, having given satisfactory evidence of the necessary qualifications as required by the laws of the state of Georgia, has been duly certified as a water operator class 3 in the state of Georgia, dated the 20th day of April 2024.
I just got Keith come to us about 8 months ago, so been a good employee, and we appreciate him being part of our department. He went on to class after about 3 months of being here. Went in and took the test, which we kind of recommend as soon as you get out, so stuff is as fresh as it can be on time, and passed the test, so we're just glad to have him in the department. Congratulations.
You're a good organization, and you work under a good manager.
Very good.
One more.
Next is Mr. Miller.
Curve distribution. Safety first. Especially around back.
This is a certification of the state of Georgia, Board of Examiners for certification of water and wastewater treatment plant operators and laboratory analysts. Certified that Christian Adam Miller, having given satisfactory evidence of the necessary qualifications as required by the laws of the state of Georgia, has been duly certified as a water distribution operator this 20th day of April 2023. Congratulations.
Chris started with almost 6 months ago. Come in, hit the ground running pretty quick, so we sent him on to class. He got an aggressive schedule on his testing, so he come out and got his test, and they were actually proud of him. He's doing good.
My question is, you gonna teach them where all the lines are that you know where they're at?
We're working on that.
There's a lot.
Wastewater, okay.
Georgia, Board of Examiners for Certification of Water and Wastewater Treatment Plant Operators, Laboratory Analysts, certifies that James Aiken Knight, having given satisfactory evidence of the necessary qualifications as required by the laws of the state of Georgia, has been duly certified as a wastewater operator class 3 in the state of Georgia. This 20th day of April, 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you.
14 years?
Yes, sir.
Have you been working with him again for 14
No,
years?
sir.
You 14 years.
I work for System Pump Maintenance Division.
He's on a construction crew, pump stations, he done the
Yeah.
gamut.
You're Jack of all trades.
I wouldn't know about that. A lot of jobs around here. Well, I know a little bit
We're
anyway.
proud of you.
I will appreciate that.
And Mark Springer thought I worked.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no problem.
You doing all right? Yeah, yeah. Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
We really appreciate these fellows getting these certifications.
Oh, well, back to work. Back to work.
I will say,
All y'all.
we hit 3 of the 4 operating groups. Didn't have anybody with collections license, but that's 3 different operating groups all getting licenses in 1 month.
That's good.
Good by our staff getting those licensures, so.
How often do they have to take tests? How do the tests available?
They can schedule a test, usually takes a couple weeks to get a test scheduled. If they are unsuccessful, they have to wait 2 months between tests.
And don't they get an adjustment once they get a certification? Do we
Yes,
get-
5% increase if you get a higher level operator certification.
So how many certifications are we shooting for this year?
12 is what we're going for this year. We've got 3.5 because one of them has passed the test. We're just waiting on their license to come in, so he'll be here next month. So making progress on that all around.
How many are there in each category?
And each category, we've got 12. Well, we have 12
I mean,
positions.
how many, like wastewater operator,
Oh,
class
there's-
3, class 4?
There's class 1, 2, and 3 on wastewater operator and water operator. There's water distribution operator and wastewater collections operator. And then lab analyst and maintenance tech, and there's a maintenance technologist license they just came out with. So we send them to GWWI, Georgia Water and Wastewater Institute in Carrollton for a week. They get 40 hours of training and then they can take the test.
We'll proceed to the committee updates. Yesterday, we had a facilities committee meeting, and at that meeting, we approved the fiscal year 2024 capital projects plan, which will come before the full commission today. We also approved a change order at Dunbar Creek, come before the board. And also, we approved 3 contract awards, one for engineering, one for emergency repairs, and another for check valve and replacements at the Academy Creek raw sewage pump station. We've also approved a standby generator rental and the joint funding agreement with USGS. And of course, we had a dedication of new infrastructure also. Under the water report, we have all the plants are running good, and we're meeting all the permits there. We've only had, I think, 1 or 2 taste and odor problems, and that was basically because the people hadn't been there. As soon as they ran the faucet, the problem went away. Or else when they had to change out the little filter. On the water pollution control plant flows, all of them are in permit, even though we did have a couple of rainy days that kind of hit us hard. Capital project report, we still have a lot of projects ongoing. ARCO is getting to be about, is it 80% through, Todd? ARCO?
I would say 35%.
It's about 80% on the water, but the sewer's only about 25.
On the water, yeah.
And so we saw some nice photos. Anybody want to look at those photos? I got them in my book here. That's my report. We also had a Finance Committee, Commissioner Stevens, can you give us an update?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We reviewed several of the same projects that were reviewed at the Facilities Committee, just spoke on from more the financial perspective. In addition to those, we had a presentation from Mr. McGinty about our annual insurance renewal, had a rather lengthy discussion about that, and just with the insurance market like it is now, even though we've made some concessions of scope and looked at the level of coverage in a lot of areas, we're still recommended today to have a increase in our annual expense there. And then in addition to that, we reviewed both the fiscal year 2024 capital budget and annual operating budget. And then we opted to select the third year, or opted to recommend to the full commission that we select the third year with our auditors.
Thank you, Mr.
Concludes my report.
We'll proceed to the approval section of the meeting. Item 1 is the minutes from the March 16, 2023 regular meeting. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as they're in the packet.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Item 2, minutes from March 16, 2023 executive session. Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll recommend that we make a motion that we approve them as read.
Second. Motion is second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is property liability insurance renewal. Mr. Burrs and Trip Stevens.
Yes, so Mr. McGinty from McGinty Gordon was here yesterday, went through this after his presentation in detail yesterday to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee recommended moving forward with the renewal and requested that staff present this today. Essentially, as Commissioner Stevens mentioned, we are in a environment in the insurance industry that's causing rates to go up across the board. We've seen a 40% increase in our liability and property insurance, with 50% increase in property insurance just because of large coastal properties. The increased amount is $185,024. The proposed budget, which we'll talk about next, has been updated to reflect the cost of this in next year's budget. So based off the discussion yesterday and these being market-driven changes, the committee recommended moving forward with the renewals as presented.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, one of the positive highlights of yesterday, though, or even with the cyber market like it is now, we remain flat in that area due to some improvements that staff has put into place. And then we also had a rather lengthy discussion about the opportunities to, mitigate some of the increase in property insurance in the future by maybe getting ahead of this well in advance of next year, and maybe trying to see if we couldn't carve out some of the pump stations and some of the fixed in-the-ground assets that are practically indestructible, and seeing if we can't, look at those a little differently and decide what kind of insurance coverage we might have to defer costs for future years. With that said, I'll make the motion, if I may. I'll make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve insurance renewal rates for each coverage category and insure as attached in the memo provided by staff.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item is fiscal year 2024 budget. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. At the March Finance Committee meeting, staff presented the organizational budget request and received feedback from the Finance Committee, which was incorporated at that time, brought back to the Finance Committee yesterday for review. And we are proud to present the Finance Committee's recommended budget for next year, which begins July 1st, 2023. We had 3 goals going into the budget year. These are similar goals than what we've had every year going to the budget for the last 5 years. Number 1, maintain affordability for our customers despite rising cost. And whether it's going to the grocery store, everybody's experiencing rising costs, and in our industry, costs have went up rapidly. We did a master plan update a couple of years ago, and trying to maintain project funding in order to maintain that master plan is always a goal for us, so we do not fall behind on the necessary rehab. And then improve equipment reliability, both our operating equipment at the facilities as well as our capital vehicles and such. So some highlights of this year's budget. We are requesting a sewer rate adjustment. It's a 25 cents per 1,000 gallon adjustment on sewer rate, and we will go over that shortly. We will be, in this budget, if approved, increasing the repair and replacement reserve funding, which is where we do projects from. And then we have significantly scaled back our requested capital equipment replacement for vehicles and equipment just because of the rising cost of normal operations. So as an overview, top line dollar, the budget request is for $35.97 million for next year. That is up a little over almost 1.6 million or 4.6%. The requested rate increase is nowhere near 4.6%. So we'll get into that shortly. So where do our revenues come from? We have many buckets for revenues. About 42% of our revenues comes from sewer. About 21% comes from water. 13% comes from an REU charge, which is basically a demand readiness charge. 18% are administrative fees that are flat rates on every bill regardless of size. And then 5% qualifies as other income. That's things like scrap sales, late fees, service fees, things of that nature. We are, by switching banking partners to Synovus, we are getting a guaranteed rate on our investments for the next 12 months, which is increasing our interest income line items. And then we get a small percentage for Mr. Klein's staff reviewing design drawings when they're sent in for private development. So revenue highlights. I said we're increasing the budget request by 4.6%, but the rate increase is nowhere near that. That's because we have seen consistent customer growth, allowing our revenues to increase more rapidly than the rates are having to increase. The proposed adjustment for sewer use, as I said, was 25 cents per 1,000 gallons. That works out to about 1.3% on the average residential bill. We do currently receive rental income from Glynn County for the current Board of Elections facility, but Glynn County is working to actually finalize the purchase of that building, so we have removed the rental income in next year's budget. So I talked about customer growth. This is a 5-year snapshot. In 2019, sewer customers, we had just shy of 23,000 sewer accounts, and we had 27,000 water accounts. We do have several water-only accounts, people that are on septic tanks or irrigation meters that they may have a domestic and an irrigation meter counts as 2 accounts. We do have a few sewer-only accounts. We have some very large sewer-only accounts like Pinova and King and Prince and Rich Products. They are sewer-only accounts, but we do have a handful of residential sewer-only accounts. Well, in the 5 years that this is showing, we've increased 1,500, 1,600 sewer accounts and over 2,000 water accounts. So consistent growth is increasing our revenue without having to increase rates at such a high pace. So 25 cents per 1,000 gallons. The current average residential customer usage is approximately 4,200 gallons a month. That would mean the average residential customer's bill would go up 80 cents per month. And here's some example bill impacts. If you are, the first 1,000 gallons of the month is included in the base charges. So if you use 0 or up to 1,999 gallons in a month, you're billed on the base rate and your bill will not change. Above that, every 1,000 gallons changes by 25 cents. So if you use 5,000 gallons, it's going up $1. 7,000 gallons, $1.50. If you're maybe a sit-down chain restaurant, it may go up $24.75, and if you're an apartment complex, $81.75. So how do we compare to others? These are utilities that you could get their rate structure offline and calculate it. So we have areas of Kingsland, St. Mary's, Savannah, Columbia County, Jekyll Island, Statesboro, Satilla Regional is Waycross, that they are privately owned utility in Waycross. Richmond Hill, JEA, so we got lots of smaller communities, larger communities, coastal communities. The average for 4,200 gallons a month is $62.86. The black there is joint water and sewer proposed rates of $61.83, so we are slightly below average. As you see, there are some that are $20 a month more expensive than us and some that are $18 a month less expensive than us, but we are in line with where other coastal communities are charging water and sewer rates.
Did you say Satilla, Waycross is a private utility? It's like a for-profit private utility?
They are Satilla Regional Utility is all I know. I don't know if they are technically for-profit or not, but they're not municipality owned because they do surrounding counties. So this is a breakdown of those 4 main revenue types we get per year: water, sewer, the REU fees, and the admin fees. And you see growth in all of these due to customer accounts each year. You see a dip in the 2021, that green bar being sewer revenues. If you follow that along, you see a dip in 2021. That is because we had 2 very large leak adjustments that were granted in 2021, and those are charged against sewer revenues. The rest of them, you will see consistent growth in all of those revenue types. So on the expense side, you can basically break it down into we have multiple here, but basically 3 types of expenses: personnel, operating, and then projects and debt. Debt is issued to help with projects. So if you include those together, each of those make up approximately a third of our expenses. From highlights, we're maintaining the existing staff count as far as the number of budgeted positions. We do have vacancies, and over the past 12 months, we have made tremendous progress filling our vacancies. So some of the personnel cost line items did increase a little bit because of filling those vacancies. We have included a budget, 2.5% wage increase budget for employee raises. With communication with the Finance Committee, we will be bringing back a recommendation for how we administer those raises to the Finance Committee before and giving those out. So we're just putting the budget in there without specifying how that's being done right now. By division, you see the 2 big pieces we have there. Systems pumping and wastewater treatment. Systems pumping is the gravity lines and the pump stations to pump the sewer to the wastewater plant, and then the wastewater treatment pumps it out to the water bodies. So that makes up almost half of our expenses. Water production and water distribution make up about 15%. So those are 4 main groups that we have. The other large items we have, I will say general water and sewer expenses makes up a little over 2%, which is much higher than it typically is. That is where the property and liability insurance is charged, so that is why that has increased. The governing body and the office of the director make up a little over 4%. The administration, which is customer service, IT, and meter reading, makes up about 7.5%. Finance, which is of course all of our finance and billing activities, but it also includes the employee health insurance line item for all of our employees is in finance, makes up 13%. Purchasing makes up 4%, and then Mr. Klein's planning and construction or engineering division is about 6.5%. So where is the budget increasing significantly? R&R transfer we talked about. Construction costs have risen rapidly for projects in our area right now. And so we are budgeting an increased R&R transfer of $644,764. That will not completely offset the rising costs we're seeing, but it will certainly help get us in the right direction. Chemicals, $366,000 in the budget increase for chemicals. Oxygen, which we use for treatment at Academy Creek, and chlorine, which is used at Academy Creek and also in the water production facilities. The rate for those has went up drastically in the past 12 to 18 months. We are working ways to try to reduce the usage we're having, but the rates are going up much faster than our usage can be dropped. Electricity, Georgia Power notified all of us that their bills will be going up nearly 20% in June, and we have a large power bill, of course, on all of our accounts, so that's making up a little over a $300,000 increase. If you're a Georgia Power homeowner, your bill's going up 20% in June as well, just a heads up. Budgeted decreases. I talked about we're drastically reducing the number of vehicles and equipment we're requesting. Over $600,000 less vehicles just because the cost of vehicles is extravagant right now. Banking fees, we talked about switching our banking partners and increasing the interest earned due to that switch. Well, it's also reducing our banking fees almost $147,000 while making that switch to Synovus. Of the capital items that are listed in the packet, but here's a few that I wanted to hit on. Lead detection units. We are required by next October to have an inventory of the service lines, water service lines in our system. And these lead detection units will determine if there's a lead service line in our system. And it's not a full lead service line. If there's a lead yoke or something in our system, we have to test a percentage of these to confirm that there's not in our system. Trimble GPS units. We go out and take GPS coordinates of assets in the field, and Trimble, like most computer type software programs, decides they're going to do forced obsolescence on us periodically. So our units that we have are no longer supported, so we're replacing those GPS units. And the Harbin Jetter unit, we're replacing. We just purchased back trucks last year. Harbin Jetters are used for smaller lines such as services. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions about the individual line items if you have any, but otherwise, I yield to y'all's recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission take the following actions. Approve submissions of the proposed fiscal 2024, can't talk today, Joint Water Sewer Commission budget to the city of Brunswick and to Glynn County for their review and comment, and approve the fiscal year 2024 Joint Water Sewer Commission budget in the amount of $35,970,000, subject to revisions resulting from comments received from the city and county.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
We'll say we will be scheduling town hall meetings. Usually it's the second week of June, one on the mainland, one on the island, where we will discuss the budget and rates for the citizens that are in attendance. And we schedule those every year, and we'll put that out and hope we get good attendance.
Mr. Burrs, you mentioned a couple times that we're able to stay relatively flat due to the growth in the community. But I think that's half of it, but I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize the work that you and your team have done to keep operating costs low. I mean, I can think of several things since I've been sitting up here that y'all brought to us that have significantly reduced operating costs, and I think that's just as big of a savings to the rate structure as the growth is.
I appreciate that.
And then yesterday, we also discussed the capital expenditure request, and we discussed that, with the new budget, these capital expenditure requests are approved, but that we're gonna change the policy so that those come back to us before they're actually acted on. So that we're not approving something now that 10 months later, it's an automatic buy, that we have an opportunity to, sit and look at a $70,000, $140,000 item in real time and decide if that's still the direction we wanna go.
Absolutely. And we talked about bringing a official policy recommendation to the Finance Committee at the May meeting to confirm that.
I'd also like to thank the finance staff for all their work and revisions. And I know it was a moving target and up until the last moment, so I appreciate all the work in it now.
Thought I had it done the week before last, and then we found out the insurance was going up $180,000, and generator rentals were having to be put in the budget and had to rework the whole thing. So
Right.
tried to get ahead, did not work.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item is the fiscal year 2024 capital projects plan. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Every year for the past 4 years, and concurrent with the budget, we have brought forward a capital projects plan so that we can plan out how we're going to do capital projects throughout the year. What this action does is approve the budgets for those projects, and then upon us bidding out the work, those contracts are brought back to you for your review and approval at that time. Next year's capital projects plan is heavily sewer driven. The total value is $16.75 million, but this does not include projects that are being completed with the Series 2021 bond issuance or the SPLOST 2021 receipts. These are projects being completed with joint water and sewer funds. 14.9 million of that is sewer, 1.85 million of that is water. We are using 3 funding sources that were reviewed by the Finance Committee and approved yesterday, and the scope of these projects was approved by the Facilities Committee. Briefly going over the projects, with the R&R funds, project number 1 will be to install a 3rd clarifier at the Dunbar Creek Wastewater Treatment Facility. Dunbar Creek currently has 2 clarifiers, these circular structures here, that separate the solids from the liquids after biological treatment. And part of the current project, the structures that are currently right here are being relocated into this structure, and then we will be constructing a 3rd clarifier approximately right here. That will allow 2 things. That will increase our flexibility at the plant to do maintenance on the existing clarifiers, and when the need arises, allow us to expand the capacity at Dunbar Creek to 5 million gallons per day. The second project on the list is the Pump Station 2001 and 2002 rehab. These are master plan projects to rehab dated equipment, mostly electrically driven. Pump Station 2001 is on Lord Avenue behind the village on St. Simon's Island. And Pump Station 2002 is adjacent to Fiddler's on Arnold Road. Both of these stations need complete electrical replacements, and then Pump Station 2002, we need to recoat the wet well for corrosion protection, and because of the corrosion in the wet well, replace the discharge piping and valves. That's a $1.35 million budget. 3 well sites. WPF is Water Production Facility. Harrington, Airport, and Mallory are 3 well sites on the island that were identified as needing complete electrical replacements. The electrical units in there are approximately 40 years old. Also, there's a ceiling repair that needs to be completed at the Harrington facility and a new finished water meter. And then at the airport and Mallory sites, we have underground storage tanks for the storage of diesel for the generators. Through the FEMA project that we have ongoing, we are purchasing generators that have belly tanks attached to the generator, and we no longer need those underground storage tanks. So by removing those tanks, we cut out a lot of liability, one, but also some permitting and testing we have to do to confirm that those existing tanks are not leaching diesel into the ground. Pump station 3103 is in Royal Oaks subdivision of the south end. It is one of the more further reaching aspects of our South Mainland Treatment Facility. It's located right here across from Fancy Bluff Park. This pump station receives flow from the Georgia Ports Authority and the commercial district right here. There's a Zaxby's, a McDonald's, and Tortuga Jack's, Dairy Queen, and a gas station. There's a new hotel being constructed here and potential residential development over here. The port is also expanding. This current pump station is undersized due to the new expansion projects, and we will be increasing the flow rate from that station and installing a new force main from that to the wastewater treatment facility. We have at least 2 options to do this, if not 3, and those will be ferreted out during the preliminary engineering process to determine the most cost-effective way of moving that wastewater. That's a $3.5 million project. And then pump station 4119 is located at the intersection of Highway 99 and Golden Isles Parkway. It is what appears to be a fairly nondescript pump station, but it pumps a lot of water. If you have driven along Highway 99 in the past couple of years, you will see a tremendous amount of residential development along Highway 99 out here, and then also up Golden Isles Parkway. All of that flows into pump station 4119. Pump station 4119 currently pumps into a gravity section that is right here, and then flows underneath the interstate and goes to pump station 4119 across from the Morningstar facility on Shell Road. What we are proposing to do is increase the pumping capacity at the station and install approximately 18,000 linear feet of force main along Highway 99, bore underneath the interstate, and pump directly to pump station 4118 to bypass this existing gravity. That gives us actually 3 benefits. One, it opens the gravity in that area up to full capacity of that gravity for potential industrial development. It enables us to increase the pumping capacity along Highway 99, and then as we have been planning to build a new wastewater treatment plant on the northwest quadrant of exit 42. If this pipe is installed and the plant is constructed, we can then reroute pump station 4118 back to the facility through the same pipe. So it's a multi-pronged approach to getting that done. That is a $6.3 million project. It is essentially the same footage of pipe that we installed down Harry Driggers and Canal last year, if you remember that project. So it'll be very similar to that project. Like I said, $16.75 million. This does not include the SPLOST projects, any ARPA-funded projects, or the bond issuance projects. So we will likely have well over $25 million worth of projects in motion next year if this is approved.
Can I have a motion?
I move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve fiscal year 2024 capital projects plan as presented.
I'll second.
Motion second. Any questions or comments?
I'd just like to encourage us to, kind of as we talked about yesterday, on these scopes that are largely electrical, to at least consider, local electrical contractors, seeing what they might do. It's basically direct replacement of existing equipment, just with more newer equipment. See if we could work with some of them, get some pricing that doesn't involve having to pay an engineer to
Yes,
do
sir.
a lot of design work, and potentially even over-design. There's plenty of electrical contractors that are appropriately licensed to go in and look at existing equipment, size pumps, and spec out their own size equipment.
Yes, sir.
I believe there'd be a big savings.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility Change Order Number 2, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. As I notified you a couple of months ago, we had a substantial sinkhole open up on the Dunbar Creek facility This line here, this gravity line, green line that you're following here, collapsed in this area. It had previously collapsed right here. We had, first change order for this project was to replace this line. When a second section collapsed right here, we made the recommendation to replace it all the way back to this structure. So our contractor on site, the design build contractor, has completed that work. With the design build contract that we have, we get open book pricing. They provide invoices for every purchase they make, and there is a guaranteed markup and overhead charge in the contract for that. They have completed the work on site, and the pipe is installed and flowing well. Work has been completed, looks very good. The cost is $340,049.48. This is funded through the 2021 bond issuance, and the request is to approve the change order number 2 in that amount to compensate BRW Construction for work that has been completed.
I have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve change order number 2 in the amount of $340,000 and change to BRW Construction Group LLC for scope changes associated with Dunbar Creek Water Pollution Control Facility Rehab Project.
Second motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I will say that I did not include them in your packet, but all of these material items that you see invoices for, I do have supporting documents to back those up, but it would have been like an 80-page packet to provide that to you. So it's good open book pricing.
And what's the lifespan of the new pipe that's in?
At least 50 years.
So we're set.
We're set, yes.
Any other questions? If none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Next item is contract award, SPLOST Exit 29, water production facility and elevated storage tank engineering. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. As you know, SPLOST 2021 collections began April 1st. And so in the end of February, we put out a engineering request for proposals for a large SPLOST project that we were granted through that process. It is to install an elevated 500,000-gallon elevated storage tank and convert an existing fire well to a production facility, which includes the installation of chemical treatment and a ground storage tank and high service pumps at the facility. Currently, the Exit 29 system is shaped somewhat like a T. We have 2 existing wells that are used to maintain the system at Exit 29. One is the old Brookman facility, which is out across from the Deans Island tract. Where'd it go? Didn't get my, there we go. Way out here. Yes, way out here. So on one end, on the far end, the other well we have is located at Fancy Bluff Park. So you see the 2 wells we currently function are on either side of our system, and then the third well that is currently installed but not in use is the Exit 29 well here, which will provide increased water availability and pressure stability to the residential growth that we're seeing at Exit 29. We'll also be installing an elevated storage tank that will be adjacent to the interstate to provide more elevated storage in the area, which helps alleviate pressure fluctuations. The request is to award this contract to Thomas & Hutton, who is designing the existing Canal Road facility that is nearly finished. It will be a standardization of design between Canal Road and the Exit 29 facility. We had 3 members of the staff score proposals, and they were the highest scoring proposal. Engineering contract value for design is $230,480. One thing that we're doing slightly differently here, for construction phase services for inspection and construction administration services provided by the engineer, we requested a not to exceed percentage budget based off of the construction cost awarded. They have provided that cost at 3%. So when the project is bid out, we will bring that portion of the contract back to you for your review and approval, not to exceed 3% of the construction cost at that time. And this was reviewed by the facilities and finance committees.
Mr. Burris, when you mentioned a T system, that means the systems aren't looped together?
Well, the problem with it down here is you got the interstate, so that they're all tied in together, but it's pushing from either end, and so the stem of the T, just kind of everything along the way is taking that out, and the stem gets what's left over.
So if you had to close a major valve somewhere along that
Yes.
line, though, you would be isolating a huge.
Yes,
system.
there's a valve we can close up here near Winn-Dixie that would severely hamper our ability to produce water in the Exit 29 area right
Most
now.
of our other systems are looped. Is
Right.
there any plans to do any looping or any?
We are looking at that, and there's some proposed development activities down there. We're looking for opportunities to work with them to loop the system as well. Because you got like Clearwater down here is a single fed system all the way down 17 into this system. So if you get a break somewhere out here, Clearwater has no way to get water.
Mr. Burrows, what's the time frame?
Time frame for engineering is 330 days. We actually suspect it will be much shorter than that because we have, we're working on the Canal Road facility, so it's a lot of the same principles. Construction time frame is approximately 18 months. The elevated tank will take 18 months to construct. Hopefully, engineering will take less time than that, but you're looking at a minimum 2 years before everything's in service.
How long ago was this well dug?
This well was dug in the 90s, 80s, been a long time.
I figured 80s.
Yeah.
I would figure.
So it saves us the cost of having.
We don't have to dig the well. The well's been inspected. It's in good shape.
Okay.
So we've already done that.
Do all these wells have freak drives on them,
Have what?
frequency drives?
No.
They
The
just-
wells do not. The high service pumps do. The wells are straight across the line. They pump 1,200, 1,500 gallons a minute.
Flat,
Yeah, the high service pumps, we can modulate
about frequency drives or about valves?
frequency drives. So we'll put, say, a pressure transducer in the system, operate off of that, or we tie it to the elevated tank and it'll slowly fill the tank instead of turning wide open and filling it at one time.
I think it's important to note that this is work that we would not be doing if it weren't for SPLOST.
Be very difficult to film
Somewhere
this.
back further in
Yes.
the plans, and the $6 million is very beneficial to our customers.
Absolutely.
It's gonna make a big difference and allow for more growth in that area.
And we did listen to our citizens that wanted these SPLOST projects done on time. We're getting out as far ahead of this as we can. We started collecting April 1st. This is the first meeting since April 1st, so we're awarding a contract today.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission award a contract amount of $230,480 to Thomas & Hutton for engineering services for the SPLOST Exit 29 water production facility and elevated storage tank project.
I'll second the motion.
Motion second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is the contract award Highway 341 Crispin Boulevard repairs. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Brief little bit of background. If you've driven up Highway 341, you have seen a road plate with asphalt patching around it sitting there for the last couple of months. Right here at the intersection of Crispin Boulevard and Highway 341, we have a partial line collapse in the northbound travel lane right here. We have been trying to get quotes from contractors, but as you can tell, this is a busy intersection. This dashed green line is a 12-inch force main that comes into this manhole, and there's another force main, the private force main, which comes from the shopping center into this manhole, and the line that is collapsed is this 60-foot section. The line is flowing as of today, but it is partially collapsed. We've been working to get cost quotes from individuals to do this. We approached 7 firms. 5 of them politely declined to perform the task due to the location and the complexity. Make this more complicated, this line is about 15 feet deep, and there are 2 36-inch storm drains that go across the top of it. So digging this is going to be an absolute nightmare scenario, and you are in a travel lane of Highway 341. So what we are proposing to do is to use cured-in-place piping techniques to rehab the pipe, which will not be perfectly circular when we get done, but will be structural, and we will also be injecting soil stabilization grout into the soils to prevent it from collapsing while we're doing that. And bypassing the area will be a challenge and a large setup, and we'll also got to repave. That is a DOT right away. DOT is requiring us to repave 50 feet in all 4 directions where we dig at. So we were able to get 2 quotes, which are essentially 1 quote, which depends on who you want to use the prime contractor. Popco Inc. will be doing the bypassing, traffic control, driveway repair at the Sonny's Barbecue, well pointing and paving for the project. Bionomics Services will handle the soil stabilization and CIPP rehab and manhole rehab. 45-day contract to get this done. It's $679,000 for Popco to do the work, which is an astonishingly high price for a 60-foot section. However, given the extreme complexity of the location and the need to get this repaired as rapidly as possible, staff is recommending we move forward with Popco Inc. at $679,000.
Can I have a motion?
Doesn't sound like anybody wants to play that game. I'll make a
We,
motion.
I will say, I said everybody politely, a couple of people were not so polite about their declining to do the job.
I'm happy to make the motion too, I just was a couple
Well-
pages ahead, but.
I move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve a contract award in the amount of $679,000 to Popco Inc. for necessary repairs at the Highway 341 and Crispin Boulevard intersection. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions, comments?
How long did you say, Mr. Burrows, it's gonna take?
45 days.
Are they sure they're gonna have it completed in 45 days?
Well, 45 days upon mobilization. They requested 2 weeks to mobilize, so 60 days overall. If we can get the bypass set up and everything off of it, the actual rehab of the pipe should be over with in approximately 2 days. The rehab is the shortest
easy
part.
part,
That's the
right,
shortest
yeah,
part of this
that's
project.
They're gonna keep the business open.
Yes, everything's gonna maintain open. We're gonna maintain access, except for on Crispin, while we're doing the work, that section of Crispin will be shut down. There's no way to do it otherwise. And we'll be out, one lane of 341 will be closed.
Do we have liquidated damages in this proposal?
There's not any in there, no, sir.
This is kind of an emergency repair.
Yes.
It is. an
Thank you.
emergency. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is the contract award Academy Creek influent check valve replacements. Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. Right here at this structure at Academy Creek, we have 4 pumps in these holes, and each of those pumps has a check valve and a plug valve in it. We've had 2 check valve failures. So we have purchased 4 check valves, but they're 16-inch check valves, and it will require a crane to lift and install these into the hole. So we went out for quotes to get someone to bring the crane in and do the work. We were able to receive 2 quotes on this work, one of them from BRW Construction, who quoted $31,423 to replace all 4 check valves. That is only the labor and equipment necessary. We have purchased the valves already. And then John Construction and submitted a $23,950 for 2 replacements. We asked them what it would be to do 4. They said essentially double it. They're not going to cut much off that price. So $47,900 for the 4 check valves. We recommend moving forward with BRW Construction in the amount of $31,423. We have spoken with BRW, and the hope is if this is approved today, the replacements will be completed next week.
Can I have a
Mr.
motion?
Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve the contract amount award in the amount of $31,423 to BRW Construction for influent check valve replacements at Academy Creek.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is contract award. Let's see who did that. Storm contingency standby generator rental. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. I was hoping not to have to bring this before you this year, but every year for hurricane season, we rent 5 portable generators from Yancey in order to make sure we have a sufficient stock of generators, because when the storm hits, everybody is trying to rent generators and you can't always get them, so we just keep them on hand. We are purchasing generators through a FEMA grant program that were supposed to be delivered in July, and we got notified last week that they're not going to be here till November. So we're going to miss all of hurricane season with those generators. So the request today is to renew that portable generator rental contract with Yancey. The current quote you see here includes is $138,605.50. After discussion yesterday at the Facilities and Finance Committee, Committee made the recommendation that we look at purchasing the cam locks and cable necessary, so instead of renting them. And so the request here is just to approve the generator rental contract. The motion would be to approve the generator rental contract in the full amount and recommend staff to purchase the cables and cam lock equipment separately.
I'll make that amended motion if I may. I move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve a project not to exceed $138,000 for the rental of generators from Yancey Power Systems, and either the purchase or rental of cables and connectors via the best methodology as determined by the executive director.
Second.
Motion second. Any questions?
I will say on the FEMA project, I mentioned this yesterday, you get reimbursed 75% of your money through FEMA and the state. So when we purchase these generators, we're basically buying one and getting 4 for free once we get reimbursed. So hopefully this is the last year we have to do this contract.
No other questions or comments? All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Next item is USGS Joint Funding Agreement. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Every year since 2014, Joint Water and Sewer has entered into a joint funding agreement with the U.S. Geological Survey to monitor groundwater in the upper Floridan aquifer for the migration of chlorides throughout that aquifer. Chlorides are present in the aquifer due to saltwater intrusion due to years of rapid withdrawal from the facility, from the aquifer. What they do is test groundwater wells all throughout downtown Brunswick and Glynn County to monitor the movement of the chloride plume, which you see here. Oh, there we go. Throughout our area, what the areas of concern are the warmer colors, the reds, the oranges, and the yellows. But of note here is we have a little bit of a historical track of what that plume is. So you can see here in June 2000, look at that. In 2015 versus today, the plume is actually slowly starting to shrink in size and intensity, which is good for our community. But we need to keep our eyes and data together on this to make sure we don't have to make adjustments. We have had to close the Perry Park well in the last 10 years because of the chloride readings in that region. So as per everything else that's going on, the cost to maintain the equipment and the analysis has increased. We were able to negotiate down with USGS our contribution to $80,000 from the original request of over $90,000. This is funded from the Office of the Director's Technical Services budget, and USGS will be reaching out to other large water users in our region to request contributions from them as well to offset our cost.
Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission enter into a joint funding agreement with the USGS in the amount of $80,000 for the continuation of groundwater monitoring in the upper Floridian aquifer.
Is there a second?
Mr. Burris, with it dissipating,
Have it second.
oh, you got it.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah. With it dissipating, is there options for future years to, reduce the frequency of the monitoring to save cost? I mean, is there?
Most of these wells are actually real-time wells, so the data is uploaded every day.
Okay,
To,
it's
so
not like
it's-
somebody's physically.
somebody goes out periodically and takes samples like 3 or 4 times a year, but most of the cost is associated with the real-time wells
Okay.
going
So it's
nonstop.
not like somebody's going out there
Right.
twice a week. Okay.
Right.
And the other question is, I mean, is there any issue with the wells on St. Simon's, or are we even monitoring those?
We have no readings of any significance of chlorides over there or at the South Main.
But we are taking readings.
We do take samples, yes, sir. We don't have the real-time monitors there because we
Right.
take grab samples.
No
but
need because
no,
of
right.
that issue.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Surplus inventory and equipment, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. We have 4 vehicles here from our Systems Pumping and Maintenance Division that have reached the end of their useful life due to high mileage and also frame and body issues that are exceeding the value of the vehicle. These vehicles all been replaced in recent years, and the request is to declare these items as surplus, and we will put them on gov deals if anyone wants to purchase them, and if they do not, we will salvage them. But with the motion is to be disposed of in the manner most beneficial to the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. So if we can get more for salvage than we can get off of gov deals, then we salvage them.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve the above listed items as surplus to be disposed of in a manner most beneficial to JWSC.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Appointment of Auditor for Fiscal 2023 Audit, Mr. Owens.
Good afternoon. Back in 2021, the Commission issued an RFP for our auditing services. That was awarded to Malden and Jenkins. They performed our audit in 2021 and 2022. The final option year is coming up. We're approaching the end of our fiscal year 2023. And so at this time, we're asking the Commission to approve for us to engage Malden and Jenkins again for our fiscal year 2023 2023 audit at a cost of $19,900.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve and engage the county firm of Malden and Jenkins to perform the financial audit of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, at a cost of $19,900.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Credit card limits approval. Mr. Owens?
Yes. With the RFP for banking and merchant services that was issued this past fall and approved near the beginning of this year, we will be transitioning our credit cards from Truist Bank to Synovus. And Synovus has requested that we get the official approval of the commission for the limit on the new credit cards of $50,000 in total across the 3 or 4 purchase cards that they will issue to us. It was mentioned in the Finance Committee meeting yesterday if the $50,000 limit was considered to be too low. Something that was not mentioned in the response to that yesterday is that the $50,000 limit in place, part of that comes from the fact that when we set up the current cards with Truist, that was pre-COVID, and not many of our vendors were accepting electronic forms of payment, etc. That has changed, and we're now in the process of reevaluating electronic spend, and for the purposes of moving from these physical credit cards to a P-card program with Synovus that we hope to be able to begin later this year. But at this time, we're asking for the commission to approve a $50,000 credit card limit with Synovus.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve the application request to Synovus for organizational purchase cards with a combined limit across all the cards of $50,000.
Second?
Motion is second. Any questions or comments?
What have the cards traditionally been used for by the organization?
Usually small purchases and emergency situations, also pre-purchasing for travel expenses, things like that. I think most recently, the recent credit card bill I saw was probably in the neighborhood of $20,000, and it covered a wide range of small items.
Anything you order off of Amazon or something like that, where you can get a better deal off of Amazon, you gotta have a purchase card for.
Right, yep. Thank you.
The motion is second. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Dedication of private infrastructure and easements. Mr. Klein?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll be very brief with this. We close out last approval item. This is easement and infrastructure, a small amount of infrastructure dedication related to a private development project called Point Grand, north of Chapel Crossing Road. As I mentioned, very small, only 340 linear feet of water, valued at $25,000, and a small 15 linear feet of sewer, valued at just under $5,000. And that is to connect to the public system. That's why it's such a short amount of infrastructure we're talking about today for dedication. It's a private development. Everything internal to that development is master metered. Everything internal is going to remain privately owned and operated and maintained. So one thing I do want to point out, this does add 264 apartments, new connections, although internal on a master meter. That's 264 new apartments to our system. So grows our system, our customer base, and as with private development that then wishes to turn over to public ownership and maintenance, this is the dedication item here. All documents are attached. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
And there are 2 easements.
2 easements, correct. Thanks, sir. Clarify, there are 2 easements associated with this because they have to cross over not only the Point Grand property, but an adjacent landowner property as well. So that's why there are 2 easements for their water line connection.
Can I have a
Chairman, I'll
motion?
move that the Brunswick-Glynn Joint Water Sewer Commission approve this project with associated dedications and easements.
Second?
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Executive Director's update, Mr. Burrows.
I'll say thank you for your input and approval of the budget and the capital projects plan that sets us on a path for continued success into the new fiscal year.
Commissioners' discussion. Any commissioners have anything they want to talk about?
The, Monday and Tuesday morning, I was smelling sewer on 17 at the Panova plant. Any idea what that was? And
I have no knowledge of that, so I'll have to investigate. They do have on-site sewer capacity that pumps to us. Their flow has been decreased, obviously, since they're not running full operations, but they have been pumping to us. So we haven't been notified of any
Yeah.
concerns.
I just thought it peculiar since the fire over the
It's very-
weekend. I didn't know if there
very-
was something.
We'll certainly investigate.
uh,
Do want to briefly backtrack and give congratulations to some of our staff members that helped out with that Pinova fire, both from an administration perspective and also getting people hooked up to hydrants, maintaining well facilities. The facilities held up well. We were able to provide a substantial amount of water and did not impact the rest of the customer base. We actually never got an alarm in the water system the whole time they were pulling. So great job by staff keeping up with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Owens, yesterday you mentioned the change in our lockbox with the change of our banking institution relationship. When does that take effect?
They're in process right now, the big part of the coding. I'm expecting or hoping that we'll have that active sometime in June.
Okay. So our water bill comes, and a lot of people, they just go on to their personal banking and they just pay their bill. I noticed on my personal bill, I'm gonna need to go in and change that address in my system. So I guess we're gonna have some kind of mail forwarding arrangement, or we can set that up?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. That was my thought this afternoon when I proudly paid my water bill.
Not only that, we are going to put together a letter to all our customers informing them that the location there we're mailing their check will change. One of the most common questions we receive at Joint Water and Sewer is, why do I mail my check to Orlando? That is because that is a check processing facility and we don't physically open every check and type it in the system. With the change in banking, that new processing facility is in Charlotte, so now your bills will be mailed to Charlotte. That is a much more cost-effective way for us to receive check payments than to open them all here. So, just trying to get out ahead, get that information out before the questions begin.
But to Commissioner Watson's point, those with bill pay,
Yeah, we're gonna send out
they're gonna have to manually update it. What about those who are on electronic pay?
electronic pays the same.
The account numbers don't change or anything, all that happens?
It's all behind the scenes, right. Your account number with us will not change, so it just goes into a holding account and then comes into us.
And probably about 20,000 of our customers have the new meters, so we can tell them everything that's happening on the meters, right?
Yes, sir. So we now have a little over 20,000 meters installed, and we can give you down to the hour how much water you used at your house. And sometimes we find interesting things like somebody didn't realize that their irrigation unit was running at 1:30 in the morning because they were asleep, and it runs every day at 1:30. Use a substantial amount of water that way.
For the chairman's update, this morning we had a meeting for the standards, updating the standards that the engineering department has updated. And they will be in the process of taking the comments we've had and putting it together. They'll be scheduling some stakeholder meetings to go over those before they're presented to the county and the city for review and approval. Correct, Todd? And what's the schedule, do you think, for us to getting everything completed?
We're gonna try for May for stakeholder meetings and workshops. And then our intent is, if not July or sooner, bring it to the final draft to the board for approval.
And there's a couple of 3 items in those that are in conflict with the city of Brunswick and the city and the county's current subdivision ordinance or whatever, as far as size of lines and things like that, that we want to reconcile with the county and the city. So you'll be discussing that, I guess, with them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We appreciate all your work on that. May 10th through 11th, I want to say the Georgia Rural Water Association is having their annual meeting at Jekyll. If you wanted to go one of those days, I'm sure.
Yes, we can get you
Andrew
in.
can work you out so you can be registered for that. If nothing else, it's good, interesting to go and just walk through the exhibit hall. We have a very good turnout from all of our staff and operating staff mainly because they need to get the certification points. And I will say, because I go to them and I kind of check the crowd, we have a good turnout at all those talks, and most of them are paying attention. I don't see too many of them sleeping, so.
If you see any of them sleeping, please let me know.
We'll put in for some PTO.
Exactly.
What were those dates
They
again?
stay the whole
May
time.
10th and 11th.
Okay.
But it's a real good conference, and it'd be a good idea for you to at least go by and see the equipment displays and everything. Also, I want to commend our director on the budget and also working out where we've only had a very small rate increase. It's amazing with the inflation that's going on that we're able to do that. It's going to be interesting to see how we can go moving forward. We have a lot of work coming up, but we have a lot more work to do after that's done, so let's buckle up and just support our director this year and everything he's doing. I want to commend him once again. We don't need to have an executive session, do we? Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.